the enchanted realms of Wales, unveiling nature's hidden symphonies. Nestled like a verdant jewel on the western edge of the island of Great Britain, Wales emerges as a land of timeless wonder, where ancient mountains whisper secrets to the restless sea. This captivating country, a constituent nation of the United Kingdom, stretches westward from its steadfast neighbour England, which forms its eastern border like a protective sibling. To the north and west, the vast Irish Sea cradles its rugged shores with salty embraces, while the Bristol Channel laps gently at its southern flanks, a gateway to the wild Atlantic beyond. Imagine a realm where dramatic coastlines collide with mist-shrouded peaks, creating a tapestry of emerald valleys and sapphire lakes that has inspired poets and dreamers for centuries. In the grand theatre of the world, Wales occupies a modest yet mesmerizing stage, covering approximately 20,779 square kilometers, an area akin to the bustling state of New Jersey in America or a fraction of Belgium's gentle pastures. This compact canvas, roughly 8,023 square miles of untamed beauty, harbors a population of around 3.1 million souls, scattered like wildflowers across its diverse landscapes. Here, where over 80% dwell in urban whispers yet the heart beats in rural rhythms, nature reigns supreme. With its highest peaks piercing the heavens at nearly 1,085 meters and coastlines stretching over 2,700 kilometers, Wales is a symphony of contrasts, from the fiery red dragons of legend to the serene blue veins of its rivers. It is a place where the wind carries the scent of blooming heather, and every horizon promises a new revelation. Aber Falls. In the shadowed foothills of the Carnarvon Range, Aber Falls cascades like a silver veil from the heavens, plunging 37 meters over a sill of ancient igneous rock into a misty embrace below. The Avon Goch, or Red River, feeds this spectacle, its waters tinted by the iron-rich soils of the surrounding moorlands, creating a perpetual symphony of foam and thunder that echoes through the glen. As sunlight fractures through the spray, rainbows arc like fleeting bridges to the divine, while ferns and mosses cloak the boulders in verdant secrecy. Encircling this natural altar is Coedith Aber National Nature Reserve, a temperate rainforest woodland where twisted oaks and hazel trees form cathedral arches overhead, their branches heavy with lichen in hues of emerald and gold. Here, the air hums with the trill of woodland birds, wrens darting like living jewels, and the elusive wood warbler weaving melodies from the canopy. Climate and geology have conspired over millennia to sculpt this haven, where human footsteps fade into the understory, yielding to the quiet dominion of wild garlic blooms and foxglove spires that nod in the breeze. Aberystwyth. Along the dramatic sweep of Cardigan Bay, Aberystwyth cradles pockets of wild serenity where the land meets the sea in a tender, timeless union, far from the town's gentle bustle. Constitution Hill rises like a sentinel, its slopes carpeted in heather and gorse that burst into golden flames come summer, offering vistas where the Irish Sea stretches to infinity under skies painted in perpetual flux. Here, the wind carries the salt-kissed breath of the ocean, mingling with the earthy perfume of wild thyme and the faint, sweet nectar of blooming clover. Nestled nearby, the Arch, a majestic masonry remnant, overlooks ancient beech woodlands that tower like silent guardians, their massive trunks etched with the scars of centuries and leaves forming a rustling dome that filters sunlight into ethereal shafts. These woods, part of Gagerthan, invite wanderers along fern-fringed paths where bluebells carpet the forest floor in April's gentle hush, and the undergrowth teems with the hidden lives of voles and hedgehogs. Streams trickle like silver threads, pooling in glassy hollows where dragonflies skim the surface in iridescent dances. Abandoned Amlwch Coastal House. Perched on the windswept fringes of Anglesey's northern shore, the abandoned Amlwch Coastal House stands as a poignant relic, its weathered stones half claimed by the relentless tide of nature's reclamation. Ivy tendrils, thick as ropes, coil around crumbling walls like emerald serpents, while salt spray from the Irish Sea etches patterns of patina on the facade, turning decay into a canvas of textured beauty. From its lonely vantage, the eye sweeps over dunes where marram grass sways in rhythmic unison, guarding secrets buried in the sand. Surrounding this forgotten sentinel, the coastal path unfurls through a tapestry of heath and scrub, where thrift and sea campion cling to rocky outcrops, their pink and purple blooms defying the gales that howl from the north. Porth Amlwch's Creek, carved by ancient faults in the bedrock, cradles tidal pools teeming with anemones and crabs, their world a miniature ocean in the lee of basalt cliffs scarred by eons of erosion. At dusk, the sky ignites in fiery hues, casting long shadows that dance across the heather, while seals haul out on distant slabs, their mournful calls blending with the waves' eternal cadence. Llyn Dam. Amid the rolling moorlands of northeast Wales, Llyn Dam rises as a graceful engineering marvel, its 27-meter granite facade curving like a frozen wave against the sky, impounding the Afon Llyn in a vast reservoir that mirrors the heavens. Spanning over 900 acres, this man-made lake gleams like liquid sapphire, its surface ruffled by breezes that carry the scent of blooming heather from the encircling hills, where purple carpets stretch to the horizon under vast, ever-shifting clouds. The dam's Gothic towers, adorned with arched parapets, stand as elegant sentinels, their stone warmed by the sun into hues of honey and rose. Encircling the reservoir, a 9-kilometer trail meanders through birch and pine woodlands, where the understory bursts with bilberry and rowan, their berries ripening like jewels in autumn's golden light. Wildfowl gather in abundance, tufted ducks diving with elegant poise, and grebes weaving through reeds in balletic grace, their calls a soft counterpoint to the distant trickle of feeder streams. The water's edge reveals a hidden world of submerged boulders and aquatic plants, where perch and trout dart like silver arrows, sustaining a chain of life that ripples outward to the moorland's edge. Amlwch. On the northeastern tip of Anglesey, Amlwch unfolds as a coastal idyll where the land yields to the sea in dramatic cliffs and hidden coves, far from the mainland's clamour. Paris Mountain looms like a colossal, multicoloured sentinel, its slopes painted in surreal streaks of red, purple, and orange from millennia of copper mining, now softened by nature's velvet touch of moss and fern. Trails snake through this otherworldly terrain, where the air thrums with the hum of insects amid wild thyme and heather, and vistas open to the Irish Sea's boundless expanse, waves crashing like thunderous applause below. The Anglesey coastal path traces this rugged fringe, weaving past salt marshes where samphire thrives in saline embrace, its crisp greens a feast for foraging eyes amid the calls of curlews probing the mudflats. Dunes of fine sand rise like undulating waves, carpeted in marram and dotted with rare orchids that unfurl in summer's warmth, while seabirds, kittiwakes and fulmars, nestle in cliff crevices, their white plumage stark against basalt's dark austerity. At low tide, rock pools gleam with starfish and limpets, miniature galaxies reflecting the sky's vast dome. Amlwch Port red brick. Tucked into a natural creek hewn by ancient geological fissures, Amlwch Port's red brick remnants stand as weathered testaments to time, their ochre tones glowing like embers against the slate-grey sea. The harbour's narrow entrance, framed by high rocks rising like primordial guardians, shelters a world of tidal rhythms where waves lap at barnacle-encrusted piers, dislodging whispers of foam that drift like spectral veils. Overhead, gulls wheel in raucous chorus, their cries mingling with the creak of wind against derelict timbers, while the horizon melts into a haze of indigo and pearl. Flanking the port, coastal heath unfurls in a riot of colour, Llyn heather's purple spikes mingling with the golden heads of tormental, drawing bees in lazy spirals under the summer sun. Salt-tolerant shrubs hug the shoreline, their twisted forms sculpted by relentless gales, sheltering ground-nesting birds like stone chats that perch like feathered beacons amid the bracken. At ebb tide, the foreshore reveals a labyrinth of seaweed-draped boulders, where periwinkles cling and anemones pulse in shallow pools, illuminated by shafts of light piercing the mist. Anglesey. Isolated yet intimately linked by the slender Menai Strait, Anglesey emerges as an island of profound natural poetry, its 276 square miles a haven of dunes, cliffs, and ancient forests that defy the modern world. The Anglesey area of outstanding natural beauty envelops nearly the entire coast, where golden sands curve like crescent moons at Newborough, backed by vast pinewoods where red squirrels scamper through needle-strewn glades, their chattering a lively undercurrent to the wind's sigh. Inland, marshlands teem with snipe and lapwings, their calls rising like ethereal flutes over reed-fringed lagoons. The coastal path, a 125-mile ribbon of revelation, threads through salt marshes and flower-rich macaire, where sea holly's spiky azure blooms sentinel the domain of seals basking on kelp-strewn slabs. Dramatic headlands like South Stack plunge 100 meters to the sea, their basalt columns home to chough with crimson bills probing the turf, while puffins burrow in grassy cliffs, emerging with beaks laden like clownish treasures. Rivers like the Allow meander through oak-dotted valleys, their banks alive with otters gliding like shadows and kingfishers flashing sapphire bolts along the water's edge. Barmouth. Where the Malvac estuary kisses the Irish Sea, Barmouth reveals itself as a coastal sonnet, its 3-mile beach of golden sand stretching like a silken ribbon under the vast arc of sky. Waves curl in lazy aquamarine rolls, sculpting dunes where razor shells crunch underfoot and sandhoppers leap in startled clouds, while the horizon shimmers with mirages of distant realms. Behind the shore, the panorama walk ascends through oak and birch groves, their leaves a rustling veil revealing glimpses of the estuary's silver thread weaving through emerald hills. Morfa Dyffryn National Nature Reserve adjoins this paradise, its 1,000 acres a symphony of slacks and salt marsh where orchids, early purple and bee, unfurl in spring's tender light amid the calls of skylarks spiraling heavenward. Dunes rise in undulant waves, stabilized by marram grass that whispers secrets to the wind, sheltering natterjack toads whose nocturnal chorus bubbles like a hidden spring in summer nights. The Malvac's tidal flats gleam with waders, oyster catchers piping in black and white finery, and curlews with bills curved like scimitars probing the mud for sustenance. Beaumaris Castle. Though its walls evoke medieval might, Beaumaris Castle's true splendor lies in the encircling embrace of Anglesey's coastal wilds, where the Menai Straits tidal dance mirrors the sky's moods in liquid poetry. Flat marshlands, once a defensive moat, now bloom with flag irises and reeds that sway like ballerinas, harboring bitterns whose booming calls resonate across the shallows at dawn. The castle's low-lying grace allows uninterrupted views of Snowdonia's jagged silhouette, where mist clings to peaks like gossamer veils, and the strait teems with seals surfacing in playful arcs. Beyond the battlements, the coastal path unfurls toward red-sided garlands of wild rose and honeysuckle, their petals perfuming the air with sweet allure amid the trill of willow warblers. Salt meadows fringe the shore, dotted with sea lavender in lavender haze come July, attracting butterflies, peacocks and painted ladies, in fluttering ballets over nectar-rich blooms. At low tide, cockle beds emerge like jeweled mosaics, where egrets stalk with patient elegance, their reflections doubling the scene's ethereal calm. Bethgelert. Cradled in the Llyn Gorge's verdant folds within Eryri National Park, Bethgelert whispers of wild enchantment, where the river Llyn tumbles over moss-slicked boulders in a ceaseless, sparkling aria. Steep wooded hills rise like emerald amphitheaters, their oaken larch canopies alive with the rustle of pine martens leaping branch to branch, and the understory a carpet of wood sorrel and violet that glows in dappled light. Feral ponies graze mist-shrouded meadows, their coats shaggy with winter's frost, while wild goats scale sheer crags with defiant grace. Bethgelert Forest envelops the village in a treasure trove of trails, where Scots pines tower like ancient pillars, their needles carpeting paths in fragrant amber, and streams carve silver ribbons through fern-choked gullies. Red kites soar overhead, their forked tails slicing the sky in rufous elegance, scavenging amid the calls of ravens croaking from rocky perches. In spring, bluebells form azure seas beneath the boughs, mingling with the white froth of wild garlic, releasing scents that intoxicate the air like nature's own elixir. Betws y Coed. Tucked in the Gwydir forest's lush embrace, Betws y Coed unfolds as a verdant prelude to Snowdonia's drama, where the river Clwgwy foams through Swallow Falls in crystalline veils that catch the light like shattered diamonds. Ancient yews, some 5 centuries old, sentinel mossy glades around St. Michael's Church, their gnarled limbs heavy with lichen tapestries in jade and silver, while the valley's alpine air carries the crisp tang of conifer resin. Trails ascend through mixed woodlands where rowans blaze scarlet in autumn, their berries a feast for waxwings flitting like feathered phantoms. Coed Gorswen National Nature Reserve harbors base-rich soils that nurture a floral symphony, ladies' slipper orchids nodding demurely amid primroses, and ramps carpeting the floor in garlic-scented waves come May. The Conwy River meanders nearby, its pebbled beds alive with dippers bobbing like clockwork toys, and grey wagtails teetering on overhanging branches. Steep-sided gorges channel mists that rise at dawn, veiling ferns and liverworts in ethereal halos, where the hum of solitary bees blends with the trickle of unseen springs. Brecon Beacons. Spanning 519 square miles of upland majesty in southern Wales, The Brecon Beacons ignite the imagination with sandstone summits that rise like fiery sentinels, their escarpments etched by glaciers into sheer cliffs veined with quartzite sparkle. Penwy Fan, the highest at 886 meters, commands panoramas where moorlands roll in purple heather seas, interrupted by golden gorse that flames against the sky's vast canvas. Waterfalls like those at Ystrad plunge into limestone gorges, their mists nurturing hanging woodlands of sessile oak and ash, where mosses drape like velvet curtains. The park's diverse realms include fens and bogs teeming with sundews, carnivorous jewels that glisten with dew, amid the calls of snipe drumming over sphagnum cushions. Rivers carve U-shaped valleys, their banks lined with alder and willow, sheltering otters that slip through currents like liquid shadows, while kingfishers dart in azure flashes along the water's edge. In the Black Mountain's northern flank, hay-scented meadows bloom with betony and scabious, attracting marbled white butterflies in languid spirals under the summer sun. Carnarvon Castle. Perched on the banks of the Sound estuary, Carnarvon Castle's imposing presence is softened by the encircling wilds of the Menai Strait, where tidal waters swirl in turquoise eddies fringed by salt marshes blooming with sea aster. The castle's grassy environs burst in spring with crocuses and daffodils, Wales' national flower, carpeting lawns in golden waves, while bees hum among clover patches that nod in the breeze. Beyond, Llyn Padarn's dark waters reflect Snowdon's peaks, a natural amphitheatre where peregrines stoop from craggy heights in thunderous dives. The surrounding coastal path threads through dune systems backed by oakwoods, where holly and hazel form thorny labyrinths alive with wood mice scurrying through leaf litter. At low tide, the strait reveals cocklebeds and lugworm casts like lunar craters, probed by turnstones in russet plumage, their pipings a seaside serenade. Mists from the estuary cloak ancient yews in spectral veils, their berries reddening like hidden rubies amid the calls of curlews wheeling overhead. Caerphilly Castle. Encircled by vast artificial lakes that shimmer like twin sapphires, Caerphilly Castle floats in a watery realm where moats teem with mute swans gliding in regal arcs, their cygnets trailing like feathered flotillas. Covering 30 acres, these lakes, among Britain's most elaborate water defences, harbour pike lurking in lily-pad shallows and herons stabbing with dagger bills at darting minnows. The surrounding parklands roll in emerald waves, dotted with ancient oaks whose acorns feed squirrels in chattering pursuits through the canopy. Gravel paths wind through meadows where cowslips and ragged robins sway in spring gales, their colours a pastel prelude to summer's foxglove towers that attract bumblebees in furry blunders. The castle's aisle, once marshy, now supports hawthorn hedgerows heavy with sloes, sheltering hedgehogs that rustle in nocturnal forays amid the dew-kissed grass. At dawn, mist rises from the waters like incantations, veiling the battlements in soft focus while coots patter across the surface in rippling wakes. Caban Cock Dam. As the lowest sentinel in the Llyn Valley's chain, Caban Cock Dam masquerades as a natural cascade, its 20-meter granite face spilling water in a perpetual, thunderous veil that mimics the wild fury of untamed rivers. Hewn from nearby quarries, its stone blends seamlessly with the valley's schistose slopes, where rowan and birch cling to crevices, their roots drinking from seepage that trickles like silver filigree. The reservoir above gleams in cerulean depths, fringed by sphagnum bogs where cotton grass nods like ghostly lanterns in the breeze. Trails ascend through sessile oakwoods, their canopies a mosaic of lichen and moss that filters sunlight into emerald pools on the forest floor, nurturing wood anemones in starry carpets come spring. Red kites wheel lazily overhead, their russet wings spanning the sky's vast dome, while dippers teeter on mossy boulders, submerging in flash to hunt caddis larvae in the pebbled stream. The dam's overflow, a roaring symphony, aerates the air with mist that rainbows arc through, illuminating ferns that unfurl like prehistoric scrolls. Cardiff. Though the capital's pulse quickens in urban veins, Cardiff's wild veins thread through verdant parks and wetlands that reclaim the city's edges in leafy defiance. Bute Park, sprawling 130 acres along the Taff River, unfolds in arboreal grandeur, beech avenues arching like cathedrals, their copper leaves cascading in autumn's fiery torrent to carpet paths in crunching gold. The river meanders through, its banks alive with kingfishers in turquoise darts and grey herons poised like statues amid the rush of weirs. Cardiff Bay Wetlands Reserve, a 165-hectare haven, pulses with tidal rhythms where lagoons mirror the sky in glassy calm, fringed by reed beds that sway with the wind's sigh, harboring bitterns whose reed-rattling calls pierce the dawn. Salt marshes bloom with glasswort in crimson spikes, drawing teal and shoveler ducks in dabbling flocks, while dragonflies, emerald and common hawker, skitter over shallow pools in iridescent veils. Paths wind through wildflower meadows where oxeye daisies and vetch entwine, nectar magnets for hoverflies buzzing in lazy loops. In the Vale's regional parks, like Bringaru's 100 acres of woodland and wetland, ancient pollards stand sentinel over streams where otters frolic in moonlit slides, and badgers sets honeycomb the earth with hidden lives. Spring awakens the canopy in lime greens, bluebells pooling in shaded dells like sapphire seas. Cardiff's green lungs breathe the wild respite, weaving nature's intricate web through the urban tapestry in enduring, vital harmony. Cardiff Castle. At the heart of the city, Cardiff Castle's grounds bloom as a romantic wilderness, where Victorian gardens yield to wilder realms of ancient trees and winding streams that evoke forgotten fables. The western moat, a sunken glade of towering limes and plains, harbors owls in hollow trunks, their silhouettes ghosting the twilight as ivy cloaks walls in evergreen mantles. Animal wall beasts, rhinoceros and hyena carved in stone, gaze over lawns where wild garlic waves in spring's verdant tide, perfuming the air with pungent allure. The arboretum unfurls in exotic splendor amid natives, copper beeches flaming scarlet against yews whose berries redden like woodland lanterns, drawing thrushes in songful raids. Streams bubble through rockeries fringed by ferns and hostas, pooling in lily-choked basins where frogs chorus in vernal symphonies, their spawn gelatinous orbs adrift in sun-dappled shallows. In summer, hollyhocks tower along paths, their spires alive with bees, while butterflies, red admirals and peacocks, flutter in painted dances over buddleia blooms. Conwy. On the Conwy estuary's cusp, where river meets sea in brackish ballet, Conwy's natural realms pulse with tidal vitality, reedbeds swaying like golden banners in the estuary's breath. The RSPB's 100-hectare reserve cradles lagoons where avocets curtsy in black and white elegance, probing shallows for shrimp amid the ripple of wind over water. Ancient woodlands of alder and willow fringe the banks, their roots drinking deep from the flood's kiss, while kingfishers excavate tunnels in sandy cliffs, emerging in sapphire streaks against the mudflat's sepia canvas. The river's glacial valley carves a deep furrow, its slopes clad in sessile oak that drips with moss in humid vales, nurturing lesser horseshoe bats that flit at dusk in echolocating swarms. Salt marshes bloom with sea purslane in succulent greens, a banquet for shell ducks grazing in familial flocks, their plumage iridescent in dawn's light. Trails ascend to limestone pavements pocked with grike flora, ragged robin and bloody cranesbill spilling from fissures like hidden gems. Conwy Castle. Crowning a rocky spur above the estuary, Conwy Castle surveys a realm where Eryri's crags pierce the horizon like jagged teeth, their flanks cloaked in mist that spills into the valley below. The castle's walls frame views of the Conwy River's serpentine course, its tidal reaches fringed by salt meadows where samphire thrives in crystalline crunch, drawing teal in iridescent flocks to dabble at ebb. Woodlands of hazel and hawthorn encircle the base, their spring blossoms a froth of white against the stone, buzzing with the industry's hum of solitary bees. The Great Orme looms across the strait, its limestone cliffs a canvas for peregrines stooping in thunderous plummets, while below, cockle beds gleam at low water like scattered pearls, probed by oyster catchers in piping processions. Gravel paths descend to the quay, where waves lap at weed-draped steps, and gulls wheel in raucous spirals over foam-flecked crests. In autumn, bracken turns to bronze on the slopes, acorns feeding jays that flash azure wings through the canopy's rustle. Criccieth Castle. Perched on a rocky promontory thrusting into Tremadog Bay, Criccieth Castle commands a seaside throne where waves crash against basalt in foaming crescendos, sculpting sea caves that echo with the sea's subterranean roar. The headland's turf, starred with thrift and sea pink, clings to cliffs dropping sheer to the surf, where razorbills nest in crevices, their tuxedoed forms tumbling in clumsy flights to the water below. Vistas sweep across the bay's curve, where dunes undulate in marram waves under Snowdonia's distant peaks, mist-veiled and majestic. The outer ward's remnants overlook pebble strands where limpets cluster in armored ranks, and anemones pulse in tidal pools like living jewels under the sun's interrogation. Spring awakens the slopes in gorse's coconut-scented gold, mingling with bluebell drifts that pool in sheltered hollows, drawing butterflies in tentative sips. At low tide, the shore reveals fossiliferous slabs, trilobites etched in stone, remnants of ancient seas now lapped by the modern tide's indifferent kiss. Llyn Peninsula. Jutting westward into the Irish Sea like a dragon's spine from the Snowdonia coast, the Llyn Peninsula unfurls as a 45-mile arc of undulating moorland and windswept cliffs, its granite backbone cloaked in a mosaic of gorse gold commons and heather purple hills that slope gently to crescent bays of silver sand. Designated an area of outstanding natural beauty, this arm of Gwynant cradles hidden coves where Atlantic swells carve sea stacks and natural arches, the air alive with the salt tang of kelp forests and the ceaseless symphony of waves gnawing at basalt. Along its northern shore, the peninsula's spine rises to Llyn trio of peaks, their summits offering panoramas where the sea merges seamlessly with sky, the horizon unbroken save for the faint silhouette of Ireland on misty days. Inland, ancient oakwoods at Nantweimer cloak steep ravines, their canopies a haven for red squirrels leaping between lichen-laced branches, while buzzards wheel overhead on thermals rising from sun-warmed turf. Menai Bridge. Spanning the swirling narrows of the Menai Strait like a filigree of iron lace, the Menai Suspension Bridge arches gracefully over turquoise waters that churn with tidal fury, linking the wild mainland of Snowdonia to the serene Isle of Anglesey in a union of engineering and elemental poetry. Built in 1826 by Thomas Telford, its slender chains sway gently against the strait's relentless currents, framing views where the strait's emerald depths twist like a living serpent, flanked by oak-fringed bluffs and distant, airy peaks shrouded in heather haze. Beneath the bridge, the strait reveals its dual nature, calm pools of kelp forests teeming with bass and mullet at slack tide, giving way to whirlpools that boil like cauldrons when the flood races through, scouring cliffs honeycombed with seabird nests. The coastal path along the strait's edge winds through salt meadows ablaze with sea lavender in July, the air laced with brine and the cries of oyster catchers piping over mussel beds exposed at low water. From the bridge's span, panoramas unfold. To the east, the Britannia Bridge's tubular silhouette hugging the shore, while westwards, Church Island's ancient yews sentinel a tidal creek where herons stalk the shallows in statuesque poise. Sunset gilds the waters in molten gold, the bridge's silhouette etched black against the blaze, as seals surface with curious eyes, their whiskered faces breaking the riffled surface like myths made manifest. Pembrokeshire Coast. The Pembrokeshire Coast National Park traces a 186-mile arc of precipitous cliffs and hidden coves along Wales' southwestern rim, where Carboniferous limestone plummets into the Celtic Sea, birthing sea caves that echo with the subterranean roar of Atlantic swells and arches like the Green Bridge of Wales spanning turquoise bays like nature's grand vault. This rugged littoral, a UNESCO Global Geopark, unfurls in kaleidoscopic drama, golden sands at freshwater west fringed by marram dunes that sigh in the offshore breeze, and razor-backed ridges at St. David's Head where porpoises arc through whitecaps like silver scimitars. Cliff paths snake through thrift-cushioned ledges alive with choughs' red-billed caws and the clatter of jackdaws wheeling from ancient puffin burrows, the air thick with gauze's coconut perfume and the ozone tang of spray-lashed promontories. Secret strands like Barafundle Bay, accessible only by foot, reveal palm-fringed idylls where crystal waters lap at cockle shells, the horizon unbroken save for Skoghome Island's guillemot clouds. Pen y Garreg Dam. Amid the Llyn Valley's undulating moorlands in mid-Wales, Pen y Garreg Dam rises as a graceful stone sentinel across the River Llyn, its 120-foot Baroque tower piercing the sky like a Gothic spire, impounding a serpentine reservoir whose peaty waters wind through wooded gorges flanked by bilberry-clad hills that glow purple in the heather bloom. Built in 1903 from local granite, the dam's curved parapet overlooks a lake that mirrors the Cambrian mountains' rounded summits, their flanks veined with rushing gills that feed the basin in silvery cataracts. The reservoir's shores yield to a fringe of silver birch and rowan, their autumn berries a feast for waxwings flitting through the canopy, while the water's edge harbors dippers bobbing on mossy boulders, their trills harmonizing with the dam's distant murmur. Paths circumnavigate the lake through carpets of wood, sorrel and violet, revealing hidden bays where pike lurk in submerged weed jungles, their flanks iridescent in the dappled light. Penwye Pass. At the Llanberis Pass's apex in Eryri's heart, Penwye Pass crowns a saddle of gritstone at 1,100 feet, where twin valleys, the Glaslyn and Nant Pieris, plunge like green gashes flanked by Snowdon's hulking massif and the serrated gliders, their quarries cradling mist-shrouded tarns that gleam like quicksilver under fleeting sun. This mountain gateway, etched by miners' tracks now softened by bracken and bilberry, offers 360-degree panoramas where the coastal plain fades to a distant haze, the Irish Sea a shimmering band on the horizon. Moorland paths radiate from the pass through cushions of purple moor grass that nod in the updraft, alive with meadow pipits' tinkling songs and the occasional wheeze of a mountain hare vanishing into heather thickets heavy with nectar's hum. The air, thin and invigorating, carries the mineral bite of exposed slate and the faint, resinous whisper of Scots pines clinging to the flanks. Pier Llandudno. Thrusting 1,750 feet into Conwy Bay's azure embrace from Llandudno's crescent shore, the Victorian pier extends like a wrought iron promontory, its filigreed pavilion framing sea views where the Great Orme's limestone cliffs rise in terraced majesty, their gorse-clad slopes alive with the buzz of bees foraging on yellow blooms. Built in 1877, the pier's deck overlooks sands that shelve gently into waves fringed with foam, the bay's waters shifting from sapphire to emerald under the sun's arc. Along its length, cast iron arches shelter benches where the salt breeze carries the cries of kittiwakes wheeling over mussel rafts, while below, rock pools teem with blennies darting amid sea anemones' pink tentacles, revealed at low tide like submarine gardens. The horizon beckons with Anglesey's hazy outline, the pier a vantage for porpoise pods surfacing in graceful arcs. Pistyll Rhaeadr. In the Berwyn Mountains sylvan folds near Llyn Rhaeadr Llyn Mwynant, Pistyll Rhaeadr cascades 240 feet in a single, ethereal veil from the moorland plateau, its waters a gossamer shroud veiling moss-draped cliffs where liverworts gleam like emeralds in the perpetual mist. Britain's tallest single-drop waterfall, it plunges into a boulder-strewn gorge fringed by sessile oaks whose twisted limbs clutch the rock like ancient guardians, the air vibrating with the thunderous hymn of 30 million gallons tumbling hourly. The base pools froth in turquoise cauldrons, spray birthing rainbows that dance in the sunlight shafts piercing the canopy, while behind the falls, a cavernous recess reveals ferns unfurling in damp alcoves, their fronds trembling with each seismic pulse. Ascending paths wind through bilberry thickets to the rim, where the river gathers in Ptyllyn's before leaping into void, the surrounding moors a purple sea of heather rippling to the horizon. Pontcysyllte Aqueduct. Striding 1,007 feet across the River Dee's chasm in the Vale of Llangollen, Pontcysyllte Aqueduct elevates the canal 127 feet on 19 slender masonry piers, its iron trough a ribbon of water suspended amid wildwooded gorges where the river far below foams through sandstone scarps like a serpent in repose. A UNESCO marvel of 1805, the aqueduct's towpath traces glassy waters reflecting the Clwyddian's heather-clad humps, the air humming with damselflies skimming the surface. Flanking the structure, beech and ash woods cloak steep banks alive with woodpeckers' ratchets and the rustle of roe deer in undergrowth thick with dog's mercury. From the trough's edge, vistas unfold, the aqueduct's curve vanishing into haze, the Dee's meanders a silver arabesque winding through pastures dotted with hawthorn's creamy foam. Porth Wen Brickworks. clinging to Anglesey's northern cliffs above a turquoise cove, Porthwen brickwork sprawls as a Victorian ruin reclaimed by salt wind and wild flora, its beehive kilns, crumbling red brick hives, crowned by sea pinks that nod in the gale, overlooking waves that gnaw basalt stacks into fantastical shapes. Abandoned since 1914, the site's silica quarries now pool with rainwater fringed by bramble thickets, their depths reflecting cirrus clouds like fractured mirrors amid the skeletal gantries. The cove below cradles a pebbled strand where kelp sways in tidal pools teeming with shore crabs scuttling over barnacle-encrusted rocks, the air sharp with iodine and the faint, charred echo of long-extinct furnaces. Paths thread through tumbled machinery overgrown with valerian and foxgloves, their towers framing views of the Skerries' distant lighthouse winking across the foam-flecked strait. Prince of Wales Bridge. Arcing 5,200 feet across the Severn Estuary's vast expanse as a cable-stayed marvel, the Prince of Wales Bridge, once the second Severn crossing, soars 151 feet above tidal maelstroms where the rivers Severn and Wye merge in brackish fury, its pylon peaks framing mudflats alive with waders' piping chorus at low water. Completed in 1996, the bridge's sleek lines reflect in the estuary's mercury sheen, the Welsh shore's salt marshes a green haze backed by the Black Mountains' distant purple folds. Beneath the span, the waterway teems with life, base shoals darting through turbid currents, while oyster catchers probe worm-riddled sands that stretch like vast tapestries at neap tides. The coastal path at Low Bridge traces dunes fringed by sea buckthorn's orange berries, the air laced with mud's mineral breath and the distant thunder of Severn Bore's advancing wave. Rhossili Bay. Sweeping 3 miles along the Gower Peninsula's western flank, Rhossili Bay arcs as a crescent of honey-gold sand backed by the undulating downs of Rhossili Hill, where turf-clad dunes rise to 200 feet, offering vistas where the Atlantic swell curls turquoise over hidden reefs before shattering in lace on the strand. This UK top-ranked beach, framed by old Bullcliff's razor edge, harbors shipwrecked ribs protruding like whalebones from the tideline, the air vibrant with ozone and the trill of ringed plovers skimming the foam. The bay's southern horn cradles Worm's Head serpentine silhouette, a tide-linked isle of blowholes and natural bridges where seals bask on ledges, their barks mingling with the sough of marram in the offshore wind. At low tide, vast sands reveal cocklebeds and ripple marks etched like abstract art, the water's edge a playground for sandhoppers leaping in sunlit arcs. Rhuddlan Castle. Perched on the reclaimed marshes of the River Clwyd's ancient floodplain in Denbighshire, Rhuddlan Castle's concentric walls enclose a greensward ringed by the river's meandering loops, now a serene waterway fringed by willow pollards whose golden catkins dance in spring zephyrs over reed-fringed banks teeming with voles and the flash of kingfisher blue. Built in 1277 amid tidal flats once navigable to the sea, the castle's footprint overlooks flood meadows where lapwings tumble in aerial displays, the air soft with grasses sward and the faint, silty whisper of the Clwyd's current. The moat, a dry ditch of monumental scale, cradles wildflowers, vetch's purple coils and knapweed's thistlekin, drawing butterflies in lazy spirals, while the outer bailey's turf yields to paths tracing the river's oxbows, where otters slide into glassy pools at dusk. The castle's eastern flank gazes across pastures to the Clwydian's heather humps, a purple haze linking fortress and fell. Snowdon. Crowning Eryri at 3,560 feet, Snowdonia National in Welsh, rears as a cirque-rimmed monarch of rhyolite and microgranite, its summit plateau a lunar landscape of shattered tors where the Havner Ridge falls away in precipitous sweeps to Cwm Llan's verdant trough far below. Glacially honed into knife-edged aretes like Cribgoch's Scarlet Fang, the mountain's flanks cascade through heather zones to oakwoods that cloak the lower slopes in emerald veils, the air thinning to a crystalline bite laced with alpine thyme. From the summit trig point, vistas embrace a 360-degree realm, the Llyn Peninsula's western arm, the Menai Strait's serpentine gleam, and the distant Berwyn's purple folds, all under skies where peregrines stoop at 200 miles per hour in thunderous dives. The Watkin Path ascends through scree fields blooming with alpine ladies' mantles' starry cushions, revealing hidden quarries where tarns pool like sapphire eyes amid bolder seas. Winter caps the peak in cornices that overhang like frozen brows, the ascent to crunch of crampon on Neve, while summer's midnight sun gilds the plateau in eternal twilight, ravens croaking prophecies from crag perches. Autumn bracken turns the flanks to bronze, red deer stags bellows echoing up the cwms like mountain hymns. Snowdonia National Park, encompassing 823 square miles of Eryri's primal canvas, from Snowdon's cirque-scarred crown to the Rhinogid's whaleback moors, this ancient park weaves 9 mountain ranges into a tapestry of slate-quarried cwms and oak-shrouded glens, where rivers like the Glaslyn carve U-shaped valleys floored in alder carr and sphagnum bogs that exhale mist like dragon's breath. Glacier's legacy lingers in hanging valleys and ribbon lakes, the air vibrant with the ozone of waterfalls plunging from hanging gills into foam-laced pools. The park's coastal rim kisses the Irish Sea at Traeth Aber, dunes veiling Bronze-Age barrows amid Marram seas, while inland, the Nant Francon's hanging coombe frames Idwal's sapphire tarn against Trovan's adamantine spike, buzzards mewing over bilberry thickets heavy with fruit. Hidden glens like Cwm Idwal harbor Arctic willows prostrate creep, relics of tundra clinging to north-facing crags. Autumn ignites the scene in bracken fire and Rowan's rubies, the Conwy Valley a golden trough winding to Bettesir Coed's fall-fringed woods, while winter's snows mantle the fells in ermine, crossbills cracking pine cones in frost-laced larches. Spring rebirths the undercliff with wood sorrel's lemon stars, drawing dippers to torrent edges. South Stack Lighthouse, Holyhead's western cliffs in Anglesey's fractured coast, South Stack Lighthouse gleams white against 300-foot basalt precipices that plummet into the Irish Sea's cauldron, where waves forge blowholes that exhale like leviathans and stacks like the thumbstand sentinel amid spume-lashed fury. Built in 1809, the tower's lantern winks ruby across 30-mile vistas, framing the cove's pebble strand where limpets cluster on kelp-veiled rocks, the air sharp with guano and the thunder of surf gnawing at faulted quartzite. The 400-step descent zigzags through thrift-cushioned ledges alive with Chough's resonant cheeps and Fulmar's tube-nosed glides, revealing sea caves yawning like dragon maws where razorbills nest in guano-slick crevices. The Stack's bridge sways to the swell's rhythm, the lighthouse a lone warder against gales that sculpt the cliffs into Gothic spires. Twilight drapes the scene in amethyst, the sea a phosphor path to the Wicklow Mountains' faint loom, seals hauling on ledges with sighs like sea sighs. Spring carpets the paths with sea campions' white froth, drawing rock pipits to skitter amid the spray. Stack Rock Fort, Rising from a wave-battered islet in Milford Haven's tidal throat, Stackrock Fort emerges as a circular bastion of granite and brick, its Palmerston ramparts softened by lichens and sea rocket that clings to gun emplacements overlooking the estuary's labyrinth of creeks where herons stalk mudflats at slack water. Built in 1859 to guard the haven's oil trade, the fort's dry moat yields to thrift cushions, the air laced with kelp's brine and the distant buoy's mournful toll. The island's perimeter path circles turreted batteries fringed by samphire's fleshy green, revealing casemates where jackdaws nest in barrel-vaulted gloom, their shadows flitting over the haven's rear arms winding like silver veins to Dale's distant cliffs. At low tide, a causeway links to the mainland, the strand a mosaic of razor shells and lugworm casts under gull scrutiny. Strumble Head Lighthouse. Jutting from Ynys Mysil's rocky prow on Pembrokeshire's northwest horn, Strumble Head Lighthouse gleams as a white sentinel against gala-swept cliffs where Precambrian strata fold like ancient parchment into the Irish Sea's anvil, forging stacks and stumps that bristle like the jaw of some submerged leviathan. Erected in 1908, the tower's beam sweeps 50 miles to guard the Smalls Reef's fangs, framing bays where seals pup on pebble strands, the air raw with spume and the ceaseless crash of swell on schistose outcrops. The coastal path threads thrift and tamarisk ledges alive with razorbills' guttural grunts from clefts, revealing blowholes that plume mist like geothermal sighs amid the headland's gorse thickets blooming coconut-scented gold. The lighthouse's base pools bristle with barnacles, limpets grazing algae veils in tidal rhythm. Dusk veils the head in mauve, the sea a phosphor-veined expanse to Bardsey Island's holy silhouette, dolphins arcing like silver shuttles in the bay. Winter nor'westers hurl spindrift veils, sculpting dunes into frozen waves that whisper of wrecks entombed below. Tenby. Encircled by honey-yellow cliffs on Carmarthen Bay's gentle curve, Tenby's beaches, north, south, and castle, unfurl as golden arcs of firm sand laced with cockles and whelks, their waters a limpid aquamarine shelving to reefs where bass prowl amid swaying kelp, the air perfumed by sea holly's thistle blooms and the faint, malty breath of low-tide wrack. The harbour strand, a crescent guarded by Caldy Island's monkish green, reveals tide pools brimming with beadlet anemones pulsing like crimson hearts at the cliff base. The South Beach's dunes cradle Marram seas where sand lizards bask on sun-warmed turf, their emerald flanks flashing amid the whisper of wind-sculpted grasses, while North Beach's expanse stretches to Giltar Point's razor stacks, gulls wheeling over thrift-cushioned ledges. Sunset gilds the bays in rose, the cliff's honeycomb strata glowing like ancient honeycombs against the afterlight. Spring carpets the strands with sea daisies' white stars, drawing oyster catchers to pipe over razorfish beds exposed in the ebb. Winter swells hurl shingle in thunderous barrages, sculpting the sands into undulant scrolls that record the storm's fury. Tintern Abbey. Nestled in the Wye Valley Symphonic Gorge on Monmouthshire's wooded banks, Tintern Abbey's roofless nave frames the River Wye's serpentine glide through ash and yew groves, where the water's peaty flow mirrors the ruins' lancet arches in dappled emerald, the air soft with moss's verdant hush and the trill of dippers bounding over riffles. Founded in 1131, the abbey's transepts cradle wild garlic meadows in spring, their white stars perfuming the cloister garth where ivy veils chapter house walls like emerald tapestries. The river's meanders loop the site in a natural moat, salmon leaping in silver arcs at the weir's tumble, while opposite, the Devil's Pulpit's crag overlooks like a Gothic balcony, hazel coppice cloaking its flanks in nut-brown veils. Dawn mists rise from the Wye in spectral veils, the ruins emerging like a stone ship from the fog, herons unfolding from alder roots. Autumn gilds the valley in copper beech and field maple flame, the river a liquid amber path to Simmons Yacht's distant rock, while winter's frost laces the nave's pillars in crystalline filigree, the Wye's flow a dark ribbon under ice-fringed banks. This sylvan sanctuary, Wordsworth's muse, harbors secrets, a fern-choked crypt spring bubbling from chapter house stone, or the river's hidden eights blooming with marsh marigold's gold. Tintern, Wales' riverside requiem, echoes eternity in stone and stream. Worm's Head. Thrusting a mile westward from Rhossili's cliffs like a low-slung dragon into the channel's maw, Worm's Head's tide-linked ridge of carboniferous limestone folds into caves and blowholes where Atlantic gales forge natural bridges like Devil's Bridge spanning turquoise chasms, the air raw with guano's tang and the thunder of swell exploding through fissures. This Gower serpent, accessible only at low tide, harbors puffin burrows in cliff clefts, their rainbow bills flashing amid thrift's pink cushions on ledges lapped by foam. The head's spine traces a labyrinth of tors and slabs veined with quartz, where seals haul on outer stacks, their mottled forms undulating in sun-warmed pools fringed by sea spleenwort's delicate fronds. Twilight cloaks the ridge in slate shadow, the caves exhaling bioluminescent mist where plankton sparks like fairy dust in the surge. Summer's low tide reveals razor-backed reefs teeming with dog whelks, their spiral shells crunching underfoot like tidal confetti. This tidal worm, Norse named for its serpentine coil, conceals nooks, Lowlight's cave veiling a subterranean lagoon, or the outer head's perches where razorbills nest in guano-slick nooks. Worm's Head, Whale sea drake, slithers in savage, salt-kissed splendor. Wye River. Winding 134 miles from Plinlimmon's boggy flanks through the Wye Valley's symphonic defile, the River Wye carves a sinuous path of salmon pools and gravel shoals flanked by sessile oakwoods where sessile oaks drip with epiphytic lichens like emerald veils, the water's peaty clarity revealing grayling sail fins darting amid ranunculus meadows that ripple like submerged flames. Britain's fourth longest river, it meanders through hay-scented meadows to Simmons Yacht's red sandstone gorge, where peregrines stoop over yew-shrouded crags in thunderous dives. In the valley's folds, the Wye's banks yield to alder car and willow pollards heavy with mistletoe orbs, kingfishers tunneling through osier beds with sapphire flashes, while otters slide into riffled glides at dusk, their wakes trailing like silver threads. The river's tidal reach at Chepstow blooms with sea asters' lavender spikes, the estuary a brackish braid where egrets stalk the mudflats like spectral scribes. Autumn turns the valley to a copper symphony, leaves drifting on the current like fiery barks to Tintern's ruins, while winter floods swell the Wye to a chocolate torrent, uprooting alders in majestic uprootings that reshape the banks. Spring's melt-birthed cuckoo-flowers pink drifts along the verges, drawing orange-tipped butterflies in fluttering gavottes. This borderland serpent, sacred to Celts, harbors gems, Bigswear's hidden weir pooling with brown trout, or the Devil's Chapel's fern-choked gill spilling to a private cascade. The Wye, Wales' liquid lyre, sings of source to sea in undulating verse. Unspoiled Red Gok. Straits swirling swellies like an emerald islet in turquoise turmoil, Unspoiled Red Gok, Red Weir Island, floats amid whirlpools that boil like cauldrons around its rocky shores, where oystermen's stakes pierce the tide like ancient monoliths fringed by bladder-rack veils swaying in the current's grip. This private eight, spanned by a causeway at low water, cradles a freshwater pond ringed by thrift and sea campion, its surface mirroring the strait's chop and the distant Eryri Peak's purple haze. The island's spine rises in granite outcrops softened by lichens palettes, ochre and viridian, sheltering rock pipits that skitter amid razor shells strewn by the flood, the air laced with brine and the faint, fishy reek of long-defunct smokehouse ruins. Seals circle the margins, their whiskered gazes breaking the riffles, while cormorants perch on weir posts with wings a-drying like black sails. Twilight gilds the waters in rose, the island a silhouette against the Menai Bridge's filigree arch, bioluminescence sparking in the ebbing swirl like stellar dust. Spring carpets the sward with sea pink's cushions, drawing eider ducks to nest in grassy nooks. This tidal jewel, fishing's ancient haunt since 1590, conceals secrets, a smokehouse cavern veiling bat roosts, or the pond's depths harboring tench in lily-pad lairs. Unspoiled Red Gok, whale's straight-bound sprite, dances in current and calm.